My name's Max Palmer. My friends call me Max. I helped build my family's business from the ground up. Late nights. Dirty boots. Busted trucks and all. I brought in the clients. Streamlined the routes. Kept the lights on when things got tight. And then they cut me out, just like that. Said I wasn't leadership material. But here's the thing, today, their biggest client returns my calls, not theirs. And I didn't just get even, I took the whole game to a new level. Stick around to hear how I turned betrayal into a blueprint for power. This is a story of revenge, served cold with a side of kale. If you enjoy sharp storytelling with poetic justice and satisfying payback, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss the twists in this one. The late September sun sat low over the Ohio farmland. It cast golden streaks across rows of kale and beets. The air smelled of tilled earth and fading summer. Max Palmer brushed a stubborn curl out of his face. His gloves were muddy, and sweat clung to the collar of his flannel shirt. The fields were quiet now. The interns had gone home, and the tractors had stopped humming. This was his favorite time. The land sighed under the weight of another successful harvest, and everything felt like it made sense. Until he walked into the farmhouse. Inside, the kitchen was warm, rustic, full of old wood and loud voices. Dean Palmer, his father, sat at the head of the dining table, flipping through invoices with his usual furrowed brow. Ellie leaned against the counter, scrolling on her phone with a smirk that hadn't faded since high school. Charlie sat sideways in a chair, legs kicked up, gnawing on a granola bar like it owed him something. Max cleared his throat. "Hey, Dad," he said. "I finished the distribution reports. The Freshway guys are happy with the new route. We shaved a day off delivery." Dean barely looked up. Good," he said. "Also, I was thinking, maybe we look at expanding into southern routes next quarter. Could be worth exploring Georgia. I've got some contacts." That got his attention. He set down the papers, but not with interest, more like caution. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," he said. "But, Max," Ellie interrupted, still scrolling, "you're good with the spreadsheets, but let Dad and me handle strategy." Max blinked. "I've been running logistics and client communications for 3 years," he said. "Half of our accounts come from contacts I brought in." Charlie snorted. "Yeah, but you're not an owner," he said. The words dropped like a brick. "What?" Max asked, voice suddenly cold. Dean's jaw clenched. He looked at Ellie, then back at Max. "It's time we made some things official," he said. "The shares, they've been transferred to Ellie and Charlie. We didn't want to complicate things with too many hands." Max's mouth went dry. "What do you mean, transferred?" he asked. "You told me we'd split the company 3 ways." "You said?" "I said a lot of things when you were younger," Dean replied, voice flat. "But this is a family legacy. You'll always have a place here, just not in ownership." "Unbelievable," Max whispered, heart pounding. "I've given my life to this farm." Dean stood. "You've done great work, Max," he said. "But leadership is about more than hard work. Ellie's got vision. Charlie's, well, he's family." Max stared at the table, suddenly shaky. The invoices, the delivery reports, the business cards from client meetings, he'd built so much of this. And now he was being erased. He turned without another word and walked out. The screen door slammed behind him, the sound ringing like a gavel. Outside, the field stretched into twilight. Crickets chirped in the brush, but to Max, everything was silent. He didn't cry, not then. Instead, he stood by the rusted old pickup, keys clenched in his fist, and stared out at the place he'd once called home. "They think I'm just part of the help," he muttered. A sharp wind cut across the field. "Fine. Let them see what that help can become." He opened the door, climbed into the truck, and drove away. The dust in his rearview mirror shimmered like ashes. The Atlanta skyline looked like a city of glass, cutting through the southern haze. Towers of steel and tinted windows shimmered in the sun, a different kind of farmland, vertical, fast, anonymous. Max stared at it from the back seat of his rideshare, his duffel bag clutched to his chest. A week had passed since he'd walked out on the family farm. He hadn't spoken to any of them since. He didn't need to, not when the silence was already doing the talking. He found a temporary apartment in West Midtown, noisy, boxy, overpriced, but it had hot water and Wi-Fi, and right now, that was enough. He padded around the tiny unit in his socks, unpacking piece by piece, every sweater, every coffee mug, a small act of rebuilding. Job hunting came next. Max knew he wasn't a corporate type, but he wasn't going to be sentimental about it now. He signed up for every freelance logistics and supply chain job board he could find, warehouses, farms, packaging companies, career networks. He filled out 100 applications while reheating coffee in a chipped mug from the farm. No one called for a week. Then one did. "This is Vivian Reed," the voice said, warm and clipped, like the kind that ran entire departments without breaking a sweat. Max had applied to Harvest Max, a major distributor specializing in sustainable produce across the Southeast. He barely remembered the listing. It was for a logistics optimization temp. Max sat up straight on the bed. "Yes, of course, I'm still available," he said. "I like your background," Vivian continued. "You've been in the dirt. That matters to us. Most folks here come from management school. I want someone who's seen what happens when a truck breaks down in the middle of a broccoli field." Max laughed, tension easing. "That's oddly specific," he said. "That happened to me last May." Vivian chuckled. "Then come in, let's talk." The Harvest Max offices were all glass doors and potted succulents. In the center stood Vivian Reed, a tall black woman in her 50s with salt and pepper curls and a walk that made space for her in any room. She didn't shake Max's hand, she hugged him. "I don't do handshakes," Vivian said. "Too much cold energy in business already." Max blinked but smiled. "Okay, hug noted," he said. The interview was less an introduction and more a war story exchange. Max spoke about rerouting around flood-damaged back roads, and Vivian told him about the time a shipment of peaches fermented mid-delivery. "You've got that field sense," Vivian said. "And you've clearly been overlooked." Max's throat tightened, but he nodded. "My family ran a farm," he said. "I helped grow the business. They just didn't think I was leadership material." Vivian's eyes flicked to him, sharp and perceptive. "Good," she said. "Then let's make them regret that." Max started the next Monday. It was temporary, but the chaos of operation suited him. He found problems before they happened, suggested route changes no one had considered. When a shipment got lost in Tennessee, he rerouted the backup within the hour, saving thousands. People noticed. He was given a 6-month contract, then a promotion, then another. By the next summer, he was living in a better apartment with real windows and a desk made of wood instead of milk crates. At a quarterly team event, Vivian pulled him aside. "We've got a big expansion coming," she said, a glint in her eye. "And we need someone with dirt on their boots to handle our regional acquisitions." Max arched a brow. "Where are we expanding?" he asked. Vivian smiled. "Ohio," she said. Max didn't smile. He sipped his wine and looked out over the courtyard, full of buzzed salespeople and laughter. "Perfect," he said. The sky above the Palmer farm was gunmetal gray, promising an early storm. The fields hadn't looked the same since Max left, as if they missed him too. Ellie stormed into the farmhouse kitchen, her heels clicking on the wood floor. "Did you see the email from Freshway?" she asked. Dean didn't look up from his coffee. "Morning to you too," he said. "They're pulling 2 of our delivery routes," she snapped. Just like that, citing inconsistent delivery metrics, which is bull. "It's the same routes we've always done." Charlie entered, scratching his head and biting into a cold waffle. "Maybe they're just testing new vendors," he said. Ellie rolled her eyes. "That's not how this works, Charlie," she said. Dean finally looked up, his eyes tired, the skin around them heavier than last year. "Let me see the email," he said. Ellie thrust her phone at him. "You want worse," she said. "They've already started onboarding with a new distributor out of Atlanta." Dean's brow furrowed. "Atlanta?" he asked. Ellie lowered her voice. "Harvest Max," she said. That name stuck in the air like a hornet. Dean leaned back slowly. "No way," he said. "They don't operate this far north." "They do now," she said. "And from what I've seen, they're aggressive, better pricing, more flexible on contract terms." Dean drummed his fingers on the table. "Damn it, they're poaching," he said. "They're winning," Ellie said. "That's what matters." Back in Atlanta, Max stood in the conference room at Harvest Max HQ. A map of northern Ohio lit up on the digital screen behind him, routes, supplier names, potential partners. It all formed a web that converged neatly on a blinking red dot labeled Freshway Central Hub. Vivian folded her arms. "So, how'd you know they were vulnerable?" she asked. Max didn't look away from the screen. "Because I used to handle that account," he said. "My family farm was one of their top suppliers. They've always had poor internal coordination. They deliver a day late, blame the weather, then send a fruit basket." Vivian nodded, smiling slowly. "And now?" she asked. "Now," Max said, turning toward the room, "we offer Freshway tighter lead times, better tracking, and fully integrated logistics." "You're not holding back," Vivian said. Max's voice didn't rise, but it sharpened. "They made it clear I didn't belong," he said. "I'm just giving them what they wanted, a future without me." Back in Ohio, things got worse. Palmer Farms deliveries were late twice in 1 week. Clients started calling, one even canceled outright. And the whispers began, "Did you hear? Harvest Max is looking for suppliers around here. Word is, they've got someone who knows this region better than we do. Ellie cursed and threw a crate lid across the barn. This is a takedown, she said. This is surgical. Who the hell is doing this? Charlie shrugged. I don't know, he said. But I heard their new regional director's some hotshot. Ellie froze. Dean turned toward them slowly, a chill rippling through the room. No, Ellie said. She wouldn't. Dean looked pale. He would, he said. 2 weeks later, a formal letter arrived, addressed to Dean Palmer. It bore the Harvest Max seal. Inside was a meeting invitation to discuss future supplier arrangements with the company's regional acquisitions lead. The meeting was in Atlanta. No sender name, just a time and a nameplate on the bottom, Director of Supplier Development, Max Palmer. The elevator ride to the top floor of Harvest Max headquarters was smooth and sterile. Dean stood stiffly in a borrowed navy blazer that smelled like mothballs. Ellie wore a blazer of her own, but her foot tapped with barely concealed tension. Charlie had stayed behind, too busy to come, or maybe too ashamed. Neither spoke as the elevator dinged and the doors opened into a minimalist hallway of polished concrete and brushed steel. At the end of it stood a frosted glass door with gold lettering, Max Palmer, Director of Supplier Development. Dean stared at it a long moment, his hand hovering near the handle. I don't like this, Ellie muttered. He's just trying to humiliate us. Dean's jaw flexed. We're here to fix this, he said. Be civil. He opened the door. The room was spacious but cold, a conference table of dark walnut stretched beneath hanging Edison bulbs. A wall of windows looked out over the Atlanta skyline, and at the far end sat Max. He stood slowly, slim-cut slacks, blazer with rolled-up sleeves, no tie. His curls were pinned back in a way that made him look older, sharper. Ellie's mouth parted slightly in surprise, but she quickly replaced it with a smirk. Well, look who plays dress-up now, she said. Max didn't flinch. Mr. Palmer, Ellie, he nodded once. Thanks for making the trip. Dean sat, clearing his throat. Max, I'll admit, this is unexpected, he said. You've made quite the move. Max walked to the whiteboard and tapped a remote. A screen blinked to life behind him, showing charts of logistics, benchmarks, and missed Palmer deliveries. I want to be clear, Max said. This isn't personal. This is performance. Dean's brow rose. You're going to talk to me about performance? He asked. You mean the way you talk to me about leadership? Max asked, still calm. Let me return the favor. Ellie cut in, voice clipped. So, this is revenge, she said. Great, well, congratulations. You've poisoned the well. What do you want, an apology? Max looked at her coolly. I want you to understand this isn't a negotiation, he said. This is an offer. He placed 2 documents in front of them. The first was a supplier transition agreement. It would formally make Palmer produce a junior partner under the Harvest Max umbrella. They'd lose all branding, all independent sales negotiation, and report directly to Max's team. The second was a non-compete clause for 5 years. Ellie's mouth twisted. You can't be serious, she said. I am, Max said. And before you ask, yes, Freshway signed with us. So did Brightmart. You'll be sitting on a lot of extra arugula if you don't sign. Dean looked at the paper, then at his son. His voice came out small. You take our name, he said. Max's expression flickered for half a second, something old, something bruised, then it was gone. You took my future, he said. I'm just evening the score. Silence fell. Outside the window, the wind shifted a curtain slightly. Ellie stood abruptly and turned her back, arms crossed, breathing shallow. Dean sighed, his shoulders collapsed in on themselves, as if decades of stubborn pride had finally run out of places to hide. He signed. Ellie didn't. She just stared at Max like he was someone else, some stranger behind glass. Hope it was worth it, Ellie said. You're still alone. Max gathered the papers and walked toward the door. He paused just enough to say, better alone on my own terms than small on someone else's. The days that followed were still and strange. Max walked through the Harvest Max distribution hub in Atlanta like a king returning from a quiet war. Forklifts whirred past pallets of citrus and boxed greens. Workers waved as he passed, their greetings warm, unbothered by the weight he still carried. He nodded back, smiling, but inside, he felt nothing. The victory had come fast, sharp, and surgical, just like he planned. He should have felt elated. Instead, there was a cold emptiness to it, like climbing a mountain and finding only wind at the summit. One afternoon, he sat in his office long after the email stopped. A basket of Ohio apples sat on his desk, part of the first Harvest Max shipment from Palmer Produce under their new agreement. He picked one up, turned it over in his hand. The fruit was flawless, crisp, branded now with a sticker that read, Harvest Max Select. No more Palmer. He bit into it. It was sweet, but it didn't taste like home. Back on the farm, Ellie stood in the barn alone, watching the rebranded crates being loaded into Harvest Max trucks. The new drivers didn't make eye contact. They weren't there to chat, they were there to collect and move. Dean walked up, slower now, like he'd aged 10 years since the meeting. "Looks clean," he muttered. "Efficient." Ellie didn't look at him. "It's not ours anymore," she said. He sighed. "We signed the deal," he said. "Can't change that now." "She could have ruined us," he added. "She didn't." That shut Ellie up. Dean leaned against the doorframe, squinting toward the fields. "You know, maybe I was wrong about Max," he said. "Maybe he had more in him than I gave him credit for." Ellie's jaw tensed. "He humiliated us," she said. "He succeeded," Dean said. "That's not humiliation. That's justice." For the first time in weeks, Ellie looked unsure, like maybe she'd been holding on to the wrong story about how things were supposed to go. Max flew back to Ohio briefly in late October, not for business but for something quieter. He parked down the gravel road from the Palmer farm and stood at the edge of the property line. The trees were copper and rust-colored now, the wind smelled like wet hay and apples. The house looked the same, a little more tired. He didn't walk in, didn't need to. Instead, he turned and walked into the field, his field once. He crouched near the edge where the kale used to grow, ran his fingers through the soil, still good, still rich. It hadn't betrayed him, only the people had. He smiled faintly, stood, and brushed off his hands. A new field would come, a better one, his. That night, Max sat by a fire pit in his hotel's courtyard. His phone buzzed, a text from Ellie. "You got what you wanted," it read. "Hope it helps you sleep." He stared at it for a while, then typed back, "Not about sleep. It's about knowing I could stand alone. You helped with that, so thanks." No reply. He locked the phone and leaned back in his chair, letting the warmth from the fire soak into his skin. Above him, the stars began to blink through the night, and for the first time in a long time, he felt at peace. The automatic doors of Harvest Max HQ slid open to reveal two men in tailored sport coats and branded polos, the unmistakable uniforms of corporate buyers. One carried a leather folder, the other held a phone in a tight grip, already scanning the room. Max stepped forward, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Hastings, Mr. Leon," he greeted smoothly. "Welcome to Atlanta." Dale Hastings of Freshway Markets nodded with a practiced smile. "Director Palmer," he said. "Been looking forward to putting a face to the takeover artist." Max chuckled lightly, leading them through the glass corridors toward the tasting floor. "We prefer the term solution provider," he said. "But I won't argue." "You know," Leon said as they walked, "your name came up last year. Palmer Produce was one of our star suppliers, small-town charm, great delivery time. That was your work." Max smiled, cool and even. "It was," he said. "Until it wasn't." They reached the test kitchen, where chefs were already plating new seasonal selections: winter squash crostinis, pear and beet slaw, roasted root medleys, all featuring produce from Palmer's land, now labeled under the Harvest Max brand. Max gestured toward the samples. "As you can see, nothing's changed in quality," he said. "Just in who answers the phone." Dale popped a crostini in his mouth and raised an impressed brow. "Still crisp, still fresh," he said. "Cleaner packaging now, too. We upgraded their cold chain process," Max said. "It was overdue." Leon leaned against the counter. "You really flipped the script on your family, huh?" he said. Max met his gaze. "I didn't flip the script," he said. "I wrote a new one where performance actually means something." Over the next few weeks, word spread. Harvest Max's deal with Freshway went public in the regional agribusiness journal, so did Max's promotion. His picture, tailored navy jacket, arms crossed in front of the Atlanta skyline, appeared under the headline, "Local Roots, National Reach, How Max Palmer Rewrote His Family Legacy." Farmers from neighboring counties started calling, asking how to partner. One old family friend, the Simmonses, who had once politely declined his expansion idea, emailed him directly, "We're interested in joining Harvest Max. The way you handled your rollout was surgical." Max smiled when he read it. Surgical, he thought. He liked that. One late evening, as the office lights dimmed and the city beyond the windows turned lavender in the dusk, Vivian Reed stepped into Max's office with 2 coffees. She handed one over without speaking, took the seat opposite him. "You didn't just grow into this role," Vivian said quietly. "You claimed it." Max leaned back, tired but alert. "They underestimated me," he said. "That gave me time to think clearly." "You've made Harvest Max stronger," Vivian said. "We needed that." "But I gotta ask you something, Max," she said, her voice lowering. "Do you feel like you've won?" Max was quiet for a beat. I think, he said slowly, that I've survived. And survival tastes pretty close to victory. Vivian grinned. Spoken like someone who knows a frost can come at any time, she said. They clinked coffee cups, and in that moment, two people who had both fought tooth and nail to make space in a world that tried to write them out sat together, not as boss and subordinate, but as builders. The holidays crept in with frost on the windows and early dusk. Max flew home again in mid-December, this time with less anxiety curling in his chest. He stayed at a local inn on the edge of town, not out of necessity, but choice. This wasn't a homecoming, this was observation. He drove the back road slowly, past barns slumped into winter and fields sleeping under snow-dusted tarps. Billboards once painted with Palmer Produce, farm fresh for 40 years, now bore the Harvest Max insignia. Max slowed near the Crossroads Market, one of the first clients he'd brought in as a teenager. He'd sweet-talked the manager into trying their kale, and it had sold out in 2 days. He stepped inside, the heater buzzed from above, wooden crates lined the aisles. His eyes scanned the labels. There it was, Harvest Max Select Kale, sourced from Palmer Farm, OH. He picked up a bunch, its leaves were still firm and dark. Behind the register, old Mrs. Corbett squinted at him. Max Palmer, that you? She asked. Max looked up, startled. Hi, Mrs. Corbett, he said. The woman grinned. Heard you were making big moves, she said. Not many around here go off and do what you did. Your dad would be proud. Max smiled, something warm unfurled in his chest. Thank you, he said. Mrs. Corbett leaned in with a wink. And between you and me, this kale's better than it used to be. Whatever you're doing with it, keep doing it. Max laughed softly. We'll do, he said. Later that afternoon, he parked a half-mile from the farmhouse. He didn't intend to go in, but something drew him closer. He walked the long gravel drive in his boots, the cold stinging his cheeks. The porch light was on. Ellie was sitting on the steps, arms wrapped around her knees, a mug steaming between her hands. They stared at each other across 10 frozen feet of memory. You look taller, Ellie said after a pause. Max raised a brow. Success adds inches, he said. That got a smile, small and crooked, but real. Ellie motioned beside her. Sit, she said. Max did. The wood was cold beneath him, but the silence between them wasn't sharp like before, it just existed. After a while, Ellie spoke again. Dad's been quiet lately, she said. I think losing the name hit him harder than he lets on. I know, Max said. He just doesn't say it. A pause. I hated you for a while, Ellie said. I know, Max said. But I don't now. Max looked at her. Why the change, he asked. Ellie's eyes glistened. Because you did what none of us had the guts to do, she said. You made this place count for something beyond pride. Max didn't speak, he didn't need to. The porch light flickered slightly, but it stayed on. That night, Max sat in his hotel room, legs curled beneath him, laptop open. His email inbox was full, expansion inquiries, a conference invitation in Chicago, a potential collaboration with a farm co-op in the Carolinas. He answered 2, then closed the laptop. Instead, he opened his notebook and began to sketch, not numbers, not plans, but a map, a new network, new farms, new growers, a future where he didn't have to wear vengeance like armor, just clarity and strength. He didn't want to burn everything down. He wanted to build something they never imagined. Spring came early in Georgia, the air turned warm in March, damp with promise. Outside the Harvest Max HQ, trucks rolled out like clockwork, each branded with bold green lettering and routes stretching across half the country. Inside, Max stood in front of his team in the main conference room, pointing at a map that had grown far beyond Ohio. Our new supplier network will cover 12 states by Q3, he said. And with the new co-op partnerships, we're not just scaling, we're seeding resilience. That's the difference between empire building and legacy. Someone in the back raised a hand. How did you get the Palmer hub to adapt so fast? They asked. Most farms would have fought you tooth and nail. Max gave a small smile. They knew what I could do, he said. They just never thought I'd do it without them. Laughter rippled through the room, but Max's smile faded into something steadier, almost reverent. It's not about revenge anymore, he said. It's about showing what happens when you stop waiting for someone to give you space and carve it yourself. Applause, but quiet, the kind that came from people who got it. 2 months later, Max drove out to the edge of Blue Ridge, where a plot of land lay untouched. The soil was rich, dark with recent rain, wildflowers dotted the edge. It wasn't big, maybe 6 acres, but it was his. He stepped out of his truck and walked the perimeter. A crew would break ground next week, starting with a greenhouse, then an education center for small-scale growers. He wanted to teach others how to scale smart, stay rooted, and still thrive. At the edge of the plot, he pulled a small seedling from a paper carton, kale, of course, his favorite, resilient, stubborn, tough as nails. He dug a small hole with his hands, pressed it into the earth, and whispered, "Let's try this again." Weeks later, in a dusty office drawer back on the Palmer farm, Dean found an envelope marked simply, "Dad." Inside was a note, handwritten in firm, looping script, "You gave me roots, even if you didn't mean to. You just didn't realize I'd grow in another direction. But I want you to know, I never wanted to bury the family name. I just wanted to make my own. Max. Max stands at the edge of his land as the sun rises behind him, not waiting to be invited in, not hoping to be chosen, but growing on his terms, always.